Good evening and welcome. This is NDTV Profit and I'm Vikram Oza. Now, wherever you look, protein seems to be the buzzword in every fitness advertisement today. But here's the reality that we see. Because there are surveys showing that nearly 70 to 80% of Indians do not get enough protein in their daily diet. In fact, the Indian Council of Medical Research, the ICMR, recommends that there should be 50 to 60 grams of protein daily for an average adult. So into this gap steps in ITC, announcing this new product in the market, which is called Ashirvad High Protein Atta, which it claims can give you 25% of your daily protein need in just not one, not two, 3 rotis. So in 3 rotis, you get 13 to 15 grams. Now that's quite a marketing pitch. So is this part of a genuine health revolution, or is it a clever FMCG marketing story? Because make no mistake, this is big business. Nestle, Britannia, Tata Consumer, everyone wants a nice juicy bite of the healthier staples market. Now the question is, will a protein-packed atta priced at a premium really find mass adoption? Or is it destined to stay an urban elite play? So this evening on The Big Question, we are cutting through the hype and asking, high protein atta, health revolution or smart marketing? And to break this down, we've got a stellar panel tonight. Vibha Harish is co-founder of Cosmix. She runs her own plant-based protein company, so in a good position to tell us how health-conscious Indian consumers are really thinking now. Manish Bhatt is with us. He's founder-director of Scarecrow MNC Saatchi, and he's going to decode the brand and marketing angle. We also have Nicole Linhares-Kedia. Now, she's a sports nutritionist. She has been an integrated health coach as well, and she's going to give us that science check on this protein intake that we are talking about tonight. And Praveen Govindu is partner at Deloitte South Asia. He's going to help us crunch the business side of this debate. So glad you could join us, ladies and gentlemen. Let's roll out the dough on this big question. Nicole, let's start with the science. Tell us, does India truly have a protein crisis, or is this more of a marketing narrative that we are seeing?
Hi, Vikram. No, it is quite true. India does have a protein crisis and has been having one for a while now. It's honestly great to see India's shift towards being health conscious and making all the attempts to finally understand the importance of having a balanced plate and making sure protein is not an option and is something that needs to be present in every meal plate that we have every day. If you ask me, that it's not something that's
can't take it lightly.
To take it lightly, it is definitely something that we need to pay more focus on, and we're doing great in that space.
You think we're doing great in that space? Vibha, as an entrepreneur in the protein universe, you track consumer health trends very closely, I'm sure. Does protein resonate with the average Indian family, or is this mostly an urban wellness buzzword, according to you?
I think we basically started protein as a product 3 years ago. And I would still say that at the time, it was definitely for a smaller audience. And we didn't see that adoption at that time. We didn't expect it either. But if I were to be honest, I think, just like Nicole was saying, I think it was meant to have its spotlight because I think it had been greatly ignored for such a long time. And I think at the moment we see people of all kinds coming in and trying protein and understanding its importance, getting aware, getting educated. And so I think it's definitely moving in the right direction. It's definitely moving towards all sorts of people, different kinds.
When you say different kinds, what do you mean? Demographically, what are we talking about?
Different economic backgrounds. We see a huge tier 2, tier 3 adoption for the product. Not only ours, overall, in all different marketplaces we're a part of. This is the common statistic that we hear that, protein is now being widely adopted across the country. We see government getting involved in that. So a couple of years back, we couldn't have imagined this. And here it is.
All right. So here it is. Praveen, you tell us in business terms, what does it really mean for this market? We're talking about a 2 lakh crore rupee staples market in India. Do you think this is going to drive adoption like maybe in a way low sugar did, like high fiber did? Or do you think it's going to remain a niche premium play?
Thanks, Vikram. No, I think it will become mainstream. In fact, if I were to quote one or two structural indicators for you over a period of 10 to 15 years, right? There is a clear shift, and this is all coming from surveys that have been done, household surveys that have been done. The percentage of wallet share of cereals has almost come down from 40%. It used to be 40% around in 2000, right? And in the last couple of years, this has come down to 14%, right? And the percentage of protein food has actually increased, from almost 5% to 10%. So there's a double 2x growth in protein food, while almost 66% degrowth in cereals. And of course, there's also one more category which also grew in during this time, which is also packaged foods, right? And
Right.
that also has actually increased from 9% to almost 23%. So long range, if you see clearly, there's a structural shift happening. Consumers are, looking at protein in a big way, and I think this shift is here to stay.
But surely, Praveen, when you talk about greater penetration for protein in the markets, in the Indian market in particular, there would be certain barriers. Could it be the pricing? Because at 80 to 86 rupees a kilogram that this atta is going to sell for, how big a role is pricing going to play in the pickup of protein in our diets in times to come?
Yeah, see, in fact, at Deloitte, we ourselves have done a survey of consumers, right?
Yes.
One of the things we also asked was, are you willing to pay a premium for protein-based or healthier options, right? And almost 80% of the cohort answered yes, they're okay to pay a premium if that's a healthy option, right? So essentially, it clearly demonstrates that, wherever there is a spending power, there is clearly a demonstration of the intent to be able to pay a little bit premium, even if that means paying a higher cost, right? So that, I think, seems to be the case. And this is across urban and rural areas, right? And you'll be surprised that most today, for example, doctors, after a certain age category, attribute a lot of issues today to probably imbalance in protein intake. And then, they're also educating the consumer that you need to increase protein intake.
So, yes, of course, as far as branding goes, and Manish, do weigh in over here, because there is always a possibility that sometimes you get so taken in by the kind of trends that play out as well. I'm wondering whether protein as such is part of a trend. Does protein atta, for one, sound like the next multigrain fad, or do you think ITC genuinely is here to own this space?
I think any trend as a novelty definitely will do a good job. There was a cholesterol issue, and there was a MUPA, PUFA, and all those things. And that time, I think rice bran, I think the normal native oil users switched to a lot of new type of edible oil usage was introduced to a lot of Indian pockets and social pocket, economic pockets, and geographical pockets. And I think that did change. The cereals, the cornflakes was introduced, and that also changed. So I think behavioral change do happen with the right marketing efforts, but the health scare versus health benefit, like a problem solver solution versus the enhancer. I think enhancer is a slow burn thing. People would need a lot of communication to be done to really convince them to convert into the habit. So I think protein, because of the introduction in gym and all, it's like how a lot of health drink. Protein does have a typecast of a little too do good sort of persona.
Yes.
So I think it has to come as either a cooler or meaningful, either of that.
Right. So the need for it is firmly established. When you're talking about 70 to 80% Indians are protein deficient, then the need is established. But as far as positioning goes, is it smart, Manish, taking a staple like atta and making it Well, in a sense, aspirational, right? Because still protein would be thought of as aspirational, though, of course, the effort is to make it more mass.
So I thought the data of protein deficiency, how does the geographically it kind of bifurcated will have a lot of meaningful analysis needed, because the if protein deficiency is more towards the less premium market or a more mass market, then probably high priced
Yes.
brand or that is not going to kind of cut ice. But if it's a phenomena of the such premium urban market, then probably yes, it is like a right demand for a right supply
So
basically.
let me take that across to Praveen. Praveen, you see this as an attempt to kind of make it more mass than it has been in the past, because when you're talking about atta, it's about mass consumption. But when you talk about protein-rich atta, then what do you address? What is the kind of audience that you are addressing over here that needs addressing so that they are in an ability for that kind of pricing as well to purchase this kind of product in the market?
So I agree. See, I think brands will have to make it mainstream. Of course, initially there is anyway a lot of under penetration of even protein-rich diets today, right? So while these products, I'm sure there are almost every brand is now looking at how do we fortify their specific product or category with protein. But of course, to start with, they will have to, this would probably require a little more, there's a higher price to this particular SKU or this variant compared to the non-protein variant. But then, they will, most probably start off with tier one markets, upper income categories. And once that is done, I'm sure it'll also kind of percolate down because protein deficiency is not an urban phenomenon
Yes,
only, right?
that's true.
It is across the country.
Yes.
So
So then the positioning might have to change. It may not be
at some
marketed the
point,
same
so
way.
it can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nicole, but tell me, 3 rotis. This is how the positioning is happening. 3 rotis serving 25% of an average adult's protein need. Scientifically, is that claim valid, or does it oversimplify nutrition today?
No, I wouldn't say it's not. It's not valid. It is valid. I do feel CG is making a big attempt when it comes to fortifying grains, and it is also helping us meet our protein requirement. It's also filling up gaps in terms of vitamins and minerals that our body needs. But there's a very fine line when they start doing that versus when they're health washing. When you sell protein water at 8 grams protein, but you don't state facts that are also there in the label, where there's high amounts of sugar, there's high amounts of sodiums that all get packed together. So that's why I said there's a very thin line between what FMCG is doing versus what is actually given to the consumer at the end of it. So some of it is great, fortified atta, staples, it's great. It's also affordable in comparison. But when you compare protein water to, say, just regular milk, which is way, way more, cost effective, giving you the same amount of protein, giving you giving you calcium along with it. I mean, I would definitely choose that option over something that's packaged and just sold to us as protein water.
Right. So, I mean, more at the consumer level, and you need to have some sense, some knowledge to be able to understand which of these products really get you the health benefits that real protein actually affords. But Vibha, when you talk about startups and you talk about D2C health brands, how they're positioning themselves against these big FMCG claims, will the consumer trust an ITC more? Perhaps because of its size, the size of the company, or perhaps less because maybe to some it sounds like marketing.
So I think a bit of both. And I think both, at the end of the day, both exist because there's different types of consumers. And I think in a way, this was a thought, for a lot of younger startups when, the bigger players started to come into the market. It was, hey, okay, this is validation of some sort because we know that this category is important. It's a category we're solving in that there is a genuine need to problem solve in. But at the same time, I think there is, of course, the challenge, right? Of, okay, it is at the end of the day competition. So there's a bit of both. But I think at the end of the day, there is the bigger players still have, they're not as agile, whereas I think these younger startups were able to innovate at a much faster pace.
Let me talk about the different factors, because there are several factors affecting buying decisions of health products. Adulteration is one, misleading health claims another. Now it's important to tackle these in businesses as well. So I don't know, Vibha, if you can answer that for me right away. Do you think you can? 2 minutes, all right, fair enough. We'll come back to that. But to be able to manage all of these, as far as the kind of misleading health claims sometimes that have taken place, Praveen, in the industry, how has the industry dealt with it? We've seen certain large instances in the past as well, and then there is an entire PR exercise that has to roll to be able to bring back the trust that consumers have. So when it comes to specific health products like this, it becomes that much more important to deliver on the kind of claims that a product is putting out there.
Absolutely right, Vikram. I think that's the highest priority. Again, I'll just quote one of our Deloitte surveys. Almost close to 75% of the people have clearly said we prioritize reading the ingredient list, right? So it's very important that whatever is the ingredient, the company kind of shares that in a very transparent manner, because everybody, I mean, almost 73%, it's not a small number, right? If we've asked this question to 1,000 people, 700 people have said they're actually reading through the ingredient list. So somewhere it is absolutely critical to be very genuine with what is going into the packet, and to be very transparent with the consumer. And yes, if there are some challenges that companies have faced in the past, they of course have to mitigate and address some of those. But this is absolute priority from a consumer standpoint. And hence, how do you ensure that it's not just the packaging, right? The entire storytelling, the articulation, all the touch points that the consumer has with the brand, whether it is their online, offline stores, wherever else they're available, every touch point has to communicate the same transparency and share, the same, ingredients in a very genuine manner.
Right. And Nicole, I was just wondering, because when you talk about wellness today, and you talk about Indians who are very conscious about wellness today, they're moving towards several products like oats and quinoa and almond flour. So I'm just wondering where protein atta fits into that mix. How much does that appeal to the wellness conscious Indian today?
See, Vikram, as we just spoke, India, I mean, honestly, for someone who can't afford, like quinoa and all is not cheap. It's not going to be affordable by half of India, at this point, because it's not priced like that yet. So if you ask me if I'm getting an atta that's fortified with protein, would I choose that at a slightly higher price? I think as Mr. Praveen stated that, they are willing to pay that price. They are willing to pay a slightly higher price if they're getting something with it. So what happens is when big companies like this come up with this, at least they're educating the mass about the importance of protein. And that really helps, it starts the conversation at least, So is protein...
Is it also, Nicole, do you think we have a term in the world of luxury, which is bridge to luxury. So I'm just wondering whether a protein atta is more a bridge for middle India when you talk about healthier food options out there.
Absolutely, it is. That's why I said, like, fortified attas is something that's come to India fairly new right now, but it's great because, as I said, they fortified with a lot of more minerals and like calcium, iron, and half of India is deficient in a lot of these things.
Correct.
So if you ask me, it is, if I'm getting that at a slightly higher price, today that's what India really needs. And say a quinoa and say an almond flour is still for a very niche market for us to, really compare it to what a high protein atta is doing at this point.
But one wonders if that's going to be the next beeline as far as companies are concerned, because they see the attractiveness and certain trends that are formed in that population of urban India then becomes mass as time moves along and certain things move along really fast. Manish, you see that happening? Because as far as consumers are concerned, there are trends to follow and certain trends are just good trends to follow. So do you see this becoming more mass? When you're talking about protein atta today, the list of products could become longer soon, and that way brands will be looking at elongating the kind of offerings that they have for consumers who are health conscious.
Yeah, I think these offerings definitely attract to trials. E-com makes it easy, and people do get attracted by this new offerings and new enhanced product. But at the end, the like in urban scenario, the younger generation, as they look at the ingredients, they also look at the very important ingredient called price. They are price conscious as well. So if it's a behavioral change, I think it has to be well priced, not come across as an indulgent. I think ease and convenience sells the best. So it has to be convenient for your wallet, and it shouldn't take the entire benefit which we trying to give, and but it shouldn't be still become a lifestyle offering. As far as that is concerned, I think it should work.
But the competition landscape is going to get that much more busy now, Vibha. Tell us how startups like yours, D2C health brands, how are you looking at the competitive landscape when you see these big FMCG claims being made for the kind of new products they're putting out? I was just asking you whether they are going to trust an ITC more because of the size, because of the marketing scale that they'd launch for a product of this kind.
Yeah. I think the protein revolution, if I might say so, started off, I would say, with a lot of the new age brands and comes with a lot more testing, certifications. And while I would say, your bigger players definitely have their name, which is just what they're building on over the years, I think while they've definitely got the distribution, the wider penetration, I think at the end of the day, the younger brands still have education, they have community, they have, and I know these are like underrated, but social media. I think a lot of the younger brands are able to talk to the customer, talk to them about how they're building out this product, what is safe, what is clean. And, in a world where we've now found that so many protein brands have done amino acid spiking or are not third-party testing.
Right.
So how do you build up that trust? I would still say a lot of new age brands are able to do that, direct, and that's direct to customer, right? So we're able to really talk to the customer, understand what they need. But I'm sure the bigger players are able to do just a lot more widespread distribution. And so I think at the end of the day, we're also talking to two probably different types of customers, of course with an overlap, but there are two different types of customers. One probably looking for that I want the highest quality protein.
Yes.
And one thing, I want to make sure that, like you said, I'm bridging the gap and I'm
correct.
Probably
becoming. So very quickly, Nicole, I want to ask you before I wrap this up, if you had to choose multigrain, gluten-free or high protein, what would win today's consumer?
High protein.
High protein, you think?
High protein, yeah. At this point, and it's great because I also see that India, who used to always focus on cure, is now focusing a lot on prevention. So it's great to see that, we have more education about how
exactly
protein are an option. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So I would definitely say at this point, protein.
And Praveen, very quickly, will protein atta reach kirana shelves in small towns, you think, or do you think it's going to stay a supermarket trend?
No, it would definitely reach the kiranas. If I'm not wrong, already some of these kiranas must be selling a lot of protein codified food because the demand is very, very clear, right? Like I said, there are people, doctors today. If you go and say, there is a pain in your back or there is a leg pain, they attribute it very clearly and say, you have protein deficiency. You please have to increase your protein, intake, right? And this will actually reduce your healthcare costs.
Sure.
So there is actually consumers also will look at it like, okay, can I reduce my healthcare costs? Instead have protein fortified.
Absolutely.
Food, right?
So there you have it. I mean, there's no taking away from the fact the importance of protein. It could be that missing nutrient in India's diet today. But whether our humble roti can solve that gap, it is now up for debate and something that we are watching that space for very closely. ITC, of course, may have fired that first shot in the protein wars if it does turn out to be that. But the big questions, of course, are still about science versus marketing, premium versus mass, urban trend versus real true adoption in that sense. My thanks to the great panel I've had today, Vibha Harish, Manish Bhatt, Nicole and Praveen Govindu. Thank you all for joining us to help us chew on the facts of this debate. The battle for India's plate clearly heating up, and tonight it looks like protein is the new buzzword. That's it from us on The Big Question. I'm Vikram Oza. Thank you for joining us on NDTV Profit. Good evening.